Welcome to the Streets.mn podcast, the show where we highlight how transportation and land use can make our communities better places. Coming to you from beautiful uptown Minneapolis, Minnesota, I am your host, Ian R. Buck. What do a municipal recycling program in Brazil, an illustrated children's book, and a bike exchange in Santa Cruz, California have in common? Taylor Lahey, a bike advocate from California, is the connecting thread between these three things. And on a recent visit to Minneapolis, we got to sit down and chat about it. Let's jump in.
Yeah, so I went and studied the Cumbio Verde, and that is a community city program, citywide, that was created because there were informal roads built, and the city couldn't get trash trucks in them. So what the city did was work with these neighborhood leaders and asked if they would be willing to pick up the litter that was being created and brought to a location where the city could pick them up. Mm-hmm. And the leaders agreed to it, and thus started a movement where people would pick up this litter and earn bus tokens at this point in time. This is around roughly the 90s to early 2000s where people would earn bus tokens. Mm-hmm. But this program had many different forms. It went from litter to produce, litter to school supplies. And today in 2025, it is recyclables for local produce. I thought that was beautiful. I think it's really elegant to be honored and acknowledged for your work and be given something in exchange to help meet your means. So in that case, it was public transit. And you can imagine some of these neighborhoods where, they lived on informal roads. They might not have the most wealth. It means a lot to have a free transit ride.
Right.
So I thought that was really special. It's the kind of place I want to live. And to me, I felt like I jokingly say it's almost like I was looking at a celebrity, and to them, they're just like, this is my Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like getting my produce. So I observed that. I came back and wrote a children's book based on it. And I also just couldn't really sit still. I've kept thinking about what would it take for this to come to life where I live in Santa Cruz or just anywhere in the United States. It felt so foreign, and it just explored this different kind of value exchange, like a local economy, or just different ways for energy and resources to move around. During 2023, I self-published the book, and I was just selling the book. And one day I actually went to the local Waldorf school, and they said, yeah, you're going to read this to our classes, but would you be willing to design a service project for us? And I had been kicking around this idea of, what would be that one resource that we could base a community exchange around. So I thought,
because you don't have the same problem of like,
that's right. Not to the same degree. You're right.
But yeah, the city has wrapped their heads around how to do trash pickup.
That's right.
I imagine.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't recycle directly in my part of California.
Oh.
So we have recycling, but we don't we don't actually create new products. We don't have a recycling plant. So in Curitiba, they actually do the recycling there. They create new products for local businesses to create drinks, jams, whatever. And so I'm just thinking about Santa Cruz, and what makes it unique is a lot of people love biking, and that's fantastic. And a lot of people own multiple types of bikes, and sometimes they outgrow it. Sometimes they have a repair they don't get to, and it just kind of ages and sits idle. So I thought, well, I have that. I have 2 bikes I'm not using. I judge other people in the area do. I told this to the Waldorf school teacher, and she said, you think you can make that happen? And I was like, sure. Thus began this recruiting. You can imagine like the Avengers of like local Santa Cruz, assembling all of them and pitching them on a one-day event where we do a pop-up event similar to the Cumbio Verde, the Green Exchange in translation in English, and have it just be a compilation of work, donation, refurbishing, and giveaway. The goal would be to do it all in one location, and everyone that participates would get something in return. And the first big partner I secured was B-Cycle. They're owned by Trek. It's an electric bike share. They were giving out these free rides, 2-hour ride passes, and I noticed that they were giving them in the UC Santa Cruz, University of California, Santa Cruz. And my first big insight in community exchange was I finally got a hold of the manager. I pitched the whole story and the whole plan. And they said, yes, absolutely. Do you want how many do you need? 100, 200? I'm like, wow, I didn't think it was going to be this easy. And he said, look, we are just getting started. I'm the only manager here. We have a bunch of mechanics. We need initiatives like this to activate our community, the greater community, just so people start trying the product. It's like, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I could take that. I could take it and run with it. That kept snowballing, and I know we're going to get more into the details, but that's how those three are connected. Just honestly seeing a vision of what modern society can be, modern living can be, and wondering and doing the courageous thing of like, well, what if we just do it? Like, what if we just try it? And I also I've never community organized any event before. It's just, I felt like I had a responsibility I learned about the story. I studied the frameworks and created diagrams and learned about it deeply. And it's like, it'd be a disservice not to try.
Yeah. And so you wrote a whole event summary and tips for future possible organizers who want to like re-implement this kind of thing in their own communities. And I was reading through that, and I appreciated the diagrams where you essentially flowcharts of like, where is the value coming in from each party, where is the value being exchanged by each party and flowing out of the system. How would you characterize the flow of the original Cambio Verde? Like in your version, it is a community run thing, but like the city isn't directly involved. This is all kind of like ground up grassroots, whereas like the municipally run thing down in Brazil is a little bit more, it seems a little bit more centrally organized.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right. In the Cambio Verde, the city of Curitiba buys surplus yield from the local farmers. It's very, like, it would be so difficult to do that on a grassroots level.
Right.
In Santa Cruz, well, first off, Santa Cruz just has a great active public and private nonprofit sector, just overall. Like, people are willing to donate their time. They see the good in opportunities like the one I pitched, and that was a real gift. Like, I didn't expect it to be so easy. And to go along with this, like, really just a really active bike culture overall comes with a lot of nonprofit bike nonprofits. Sure. And the Community Bike Collective is who I worked with, and they had already had a program where they would collect bikes over time, and when they reached critical mass, they would hold an event at somewhere, and they would recruit a bunch of mechanics, and they would fix them all up, and sometimes they would even coordinate a recipient group. So it's very similar to the bike exchange. The difference being that it was done over time, and it was centralized around the Community Bike Collective. Yeah. So insight number 2, I guess, would be that when designing a community exchange, or maybe even organizing community events in general, is how do you just tap the superpowers of those already in your community? And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, if you're on board, could we get the housing authority? Because they have low-income residents that might need these bikes. So like, yeah, let me get on that. And sure enough, they got added to the equation.
And one of your tips in the document was like, try something small first that's not directly advertised publicly, and so that you can control like how many variables you have going on at the time. So in your version, you had donations coming in from families of the Waldorf School. You had bike mechanics from this specific community co-op sort of.
It's a nonprofit called the Community Bike Collective, but go on.
Yep. And then the recipients were specifically people who lived in the housing
authority
buildings. Yeah. If we were to scale this up, if I as an individual had a bike at home that I wanted to donate, what would the experience look like, and how would that differ from me bringing my bike to like free bikes for kids, right? Which is the kind of thing where, like you said, centralized and spread out over time. Right. So like I, as a donor, wouldn't see any of the rest of the process because I drop off the bike and then I leave and then that's it.
That's right. So what the bike exchange actually really accomplishes what it does is it actually activates a place in the public, and it takes place in the public, and the coordination that goes with that allows people to get things done in a more efficient way. It's a very productive process, on top of it being an excuse to get together and offer something to someone, and as well as get a little something out of it, meaning like maybe I don't want that bike anymore. And so you get a little bit of both this reciprocation, this reciprocal nature of participation. The biggest thing would be, it would be potentially taken care of in the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And it would spread out that responsibility across multiple entities rather than Free Bikes for Kids.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the liability would just sit on Free Bikes for Kids in that situation.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Community Bike Collective still had to deal with the waivers. They still registered bikes, but it took a lot off their plate to guarantee bikes moving the same day.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't mean they had to go bring it back to storage, and that's a big deal. Bikes they're not easy to move if you have them. If you have a lot of them.
Yeah. Easy to move one at a time.
Sure.
If you've got your butt on the bike.
Right. That's right. So big difference. I have to say that there's a very human aspect to what happened in the proof of concept, because right now, like, it's still more efficient. Of course, it's still more efficient to go to Free Bikes for Kids. They operate, daily, and they have people, willing to communicate with you. This was a proof of concept of event, and it wouldn't be effective without some sort of regular cadence.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine if a bike exchange was happening quarterly, every half year, it wouldn't be a big deal to look at a bike that you're not using and say, you know what, I'm going to wait till May, and I'll just bring it out in May and roll it out and just know it's going to get taken care of and brought to someone else in the community. So right now, it's these individual actors, these individual players in our community are still more effective. But what the Bike Exchange offers, or any community exchange offers, is there is a connector component, a community organizer component that kind of lays out the playbook and sets roles and helps people slot in and guarantees, like, we're going to have this many bikes, we're going to have this many mechanics, we're going to have this many recipients. And that's what really the magic is just this communication and coordination.
There was pizza involved, I hear. That's very important.
Yeah,
if you ask me.
I learned a lot about mechanic culture, and I thought at first, was like, really, these guys just want pizza and beer? And I thought that was a little stereotypical. I was like, maybe they want, like, maybe I could get them salads, or I don't know. And they're just like, the community bike collector was like, pizzas are going to be great. They're going to love it. I'm like, okay, I'll make sure one of them is gluten free, but otherwise, are we good with, just like 7 pies? I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's more than they expect most of the time. So it was really pleasant working with mechanics. And what was really fun was we set a goal to do 50 bikes in one day. And, some of that, of course, has to do with how many donations we get from the Waldorf School. But what happened was the Community Bike Collective just went all out, went to thrift stores, grabbed a bunch of bikes, and we got 70 bikes there that day. And we had to tell the mechanics, like, hey, it's 4, like, we got to stop working. It's 4 p.m. You've been working since 10, but they were really motivated, and we're really grateful for it.
Yeah. Now, given that these donations were coming from, like, families at the Waldorf School, I imagine it was mostly kids' bikes. Was it exclusively kids' bikes? Was that a requirement of the event, or were you also doing adult bikes and stuff?
We had teachers participate, so there were some adult bikes. A lot of them were children's bikes, but we got 23 from the Waldorf School, and then it's 37 from the Community Bike Collective, and those were all varied different types of bikes. And there was some inventory already with the Community Bike Collective they just brought out.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So it was also it was a service to the Community Bike Collective to just get rid of all of their inventory. So yeah, it just allowed itself to, the situation just allowed people to empty inventory and just get it redistributed to those who need it.
Yeah. And so the Community Bike Collective, like, what usually happens with those bikes that were in their inventory?
So they sit in a storage space, and they're logged, they're registered. If that is done ahead of time, they try to, for sure. And when there's too many of them, they hold an event, they promote it, and they partner with a company like the housing authority, and they bring it to a location where mechanics are willing to go. Sometimes it's in different parts of the county where I live in Santa Cruz, and they encourage people to come get those bikes. The difference between that process versus the bike exchange is there's a priority to hold the bike exchange in a relevant location that's frequented or convenient for the recipient community, so that it just makes it super easy to participate. If you can make it really, really easy, then you're more likely to have success.
Yeah.
And there is more work on the back end for sure, but with the added help of a community organizer and teamwork, it's just a little bit more likely that you can land that position in the county.
Now, one thing that I noticed about this process is that both because of the time component where like donations were happening in the morning and then the bikes get worked on and then they get delivered to the recipients. And also you had two different locations. And I think the document said that was partially to like protect the privacy of the recipients. Like the donors and the recipients never actually meet each other, which stood out to me because like in the past when I have had a spare bike and, you know, saw somebody in a Discord server who was like, hey, I need a bike to go commute, you know, expand my, the amount of jobs that I can look for and everything. And I was like, yeah. Let's meet up. I'll give you the bike. You know, we're about the same height. And like meeting this guy and both like showing him like, hey, here's my old mountain bike, you know, like here's X, Y, and Z things that you need to know about it. But also like just getting to have that human to human connection was really important to me. So like what were your thoughts on that aspect of removing that meeting?
I totally understand why that had to happen. It was a must. And at the same time, I think that's where all the community magic would happen. Mm-hmm. The trust, the safety, the collaboration that we are aching to see in our modern living, in our cities and our towns. That's where I think all that starts to get cultivated. So it was understood, made a lot of sense, but I think I still want to feel that. I still want to know what it looks like. Ideally, it would be in one location. I foresee, where I envision of a time where a bike exchange happens where someone that actually got a bike from the bike exchange rolls it back into donation. And someone on a whim just goes, wow, a free bike? And I can imagine mechanics over time building like an awesome reputation in the community as that person that got me my first bike ride or made my commute to work so much easier, or you know, we got our first bike for free instead of having to pay for it. It would just be, I could just see it really compounding in community reputation, community trust, all that.
Yeah. So if you did this again, would you like if you were expanding this out to be fully publicly accessible, right? And like you're not limiting, recipients are only going to be from the housing authority properties, you know. Would there be that chance for, you know, like people who are donating and people who are receiving like meeting each other, even if they're not like necessarily like one bike is going from person A to person B, but having the full community there and being able to meet each other and food and, you know, a whole party and whatever.
I mean, I would love that. I think the way we had to work through our partners, we had to, you know, we're using the housing authority's parking lot, and that was awesome. It was a lot more central than some of the other places the Community Bike Collective had hosted their bike fixing parties, and that was a great benefit. There was trade-offs. I would absolutely love to see this even more local. Like it may not have to be as many bikes, but maybe it could be within more proximity, and that way there's actually opportunities to create relationships we're going to see more often. And I think that's totally doable, and to do that, I would recommend based on the amount of community centers, parks, schools is another good one. I've thought of like, what if there was it's elementary school, like a 5th or 6th grader passing down their smaller bike, and it goes just further down, right. And then there's just something, whether if it's like not having to pay dues for a field trip, or you know, like there's some sort of like, maybe it's a musical instrument like due that gets written off or something because you gave a bike to a younger kid in the school. I think even smaller could prove to be more elegant because I just judge we have a lot of stuff and we could take care of each other if we start thinking that way. In terms of bigger, I would definitely try to just keep it as local as possible. And that actually would require more relationship building, really. For instance, the Community Bike Collective, the president and the vice president live in Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz proper is where they're based, and then the headquarters is in Watsonville. That's I think it's like 20 miles. It's far enough where they're having to go back and forth, and they had to, you know, we had to move some of the bikes back the first day, and that's a haul. If we could keep things as local as possible, no one has to hang on to anything. That I believe would be a really like effective bike exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea of that being within like a school community or something, really specific like that. That makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. I have another example.
Yeah.
I went to UC Davis, another bike capital as far as college campuses go. And I met with the Bike Barn. It's a on-campus bike service. They fix bikes, sell bikes, all that.
Okay.
And the manager there told me about how there's there's a lack of a program where upperclassmen, they graduate, they don't want to deal with their bike anymore.
Oh, sure.
And that's irresponsible. But if there was some sort of coordination and those were pulled in and just held for 3 months and then brought to the lower classmen, it would, again, the elegance there, the efficiency there, the 100-foot, the 1,000-foot view would be like, that's the most logical thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, getting to know your community that you're serving really well, and creating strong relationships, and having a place that might impound bikes, be like, hey, can we hold these for a bit, because we could just give them away if you're open to it. It would decrease the amount of work and admin and penalties that might have to be issued to students. Like, it would be smart. So I think this is why I while I could keep perfecting the type of event, the type of bike exchange I did, there's really smart ways to just try to get to know your community and see what resources do you have, what kind of space you have, what amount of bikes you might have, and where can we store, where can we store bikes, where are the mechanics located, and just try to optimize around some of these variables.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, like, outside of the bike community, things that I've seen that are kind of similar to this, and like the retro computing community comes to mind with, like, that they host events every once in a while that are like, just everybody brings whatever old computers they have, and people are like excited about it, and kind of showing off to each other, and then like everyone, like, some people are willing to give away an old, and like other people want to pick one up and start experimenting with it and stuff, and it's like, find your passion, right? Yeah.
Isn't that special? Like, to see all these like gadgets that were loved pulled together and find another home, find another person that you just get a quick intuition hit that I think they're going to take care of it. I think they're going to do something great with it. If I am giving it away to them, I don't necessarily need to sell it. I got what I wanted out of it. Let's see what they could do with it. Yeah. And know that if you're in a place where if you wanted to do the same, sure, I could pick up a computer part and tinker with it. And I think if that's understood in that community culture, then there's just more sharing, there's more collaboration, there's more offering of resources for free.
In the college context that you were mentioning, that reminded me of when I studied abroad for just one semester up at in northern Sweden, Luleå Technical University, and the apartment that I and most of the other international students were living in, was, I don't know, a 30-minute walk from campus, and a lot of people bought themselves a bike just for that one semester to use to get to and from campus, and then. But I didn't do that because I was like, number one, I was like, I don't want to have to deal with like figuring out who to sell this to at the end of the semester. Like, what if I'm not able to sell? Like, what am I going to do with this freaking bike? So I'm looking at this like big pile of bikes. Most people didn't even lock theirs up, outside of the apartment every day. And I was like, what if we all just like had an agreement that like anybody could grab a bike when they wanted to go to campus. And then when you come back from campus, you just bring another bike with you. And like, if we're all chill about it, it would be fine. Yeah. And it wasn't until after I got back to the States and moved back to the Twin Cities that I found out about Nice Ride. And I'm like, oh, bike share. That, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think what's really fascinating about that is there's just a different layer in which we move resources and goods in. There's you could do it in the market, or you could do it in the community, and just rules are just a little different in that setting. And so I think that's really fascinating to call out, and that's kind of where the bike exchange operates.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we talk about the book a little bit?
Sure.
Like what, so you wrote this book after witnessing the green exchange in Brazil, before implementing the bike exchange in Santa Cruz. So like, I understand that there's a little bit of magical realism in the book. Like what happens? Like is it trying to impart a lesson on the kids who read it? Like, what are we going for here?
Yeah. So the magical realism you're pointing at is called the glow. It's honestly the feeling when you are immediately just open and happy for someone else's well-being, and It could be right after you do something kind, and within the context of the book is it could be kindness, it could be the belief that we're stronger together. It takes a village. There's some of those cliches, and what's also at play within the book is that what was special about the Green Exchange during that time is there were other programs in the city, and those bus tokens started getting used like money. And that is where I thought, again, like on a societal level, outside of picking up litter and exchanging it for bus tokens, like to just do anything that benefits the collective and to have some sort of acknowledgement, some sort of thank you for your energy and time, and to get rewarded to meet your basic needs. That's cool. That like we don't have that here. We have different forms of it, and sometimes it's for literal money. I've seen that locally, but for transit ride, which there's an abundance of, there's a lot of space in buses, and if you can't get on one bus, you just wait for the next one. The idea of different organizations offering what they have in abundance to solve for the things we need, and underutilized work to pick up the trash is just smart. It just feels like the gaps are getting filled by what we have. We look inward to solve some of these problems. Yeah. So I really loved, I really wanted to challenge, like, what is the meaning of money in this case? Because there's a moment where, oh my God, the bus tokens became something you could spend in stores, and you could buy groceries. And in fact, in the story, the child is wearing these old sandals and old tattered sandals, and they break. And finally he starts thinking, well, I could just buy new ones. I could just buy new sandals, new shoes, whatever that looks like for me, whatever I want. And it's in the end where an old man in the book says, is that really what this is all about? Do you think the bus tokens are really about just making money? Take a look at this quality of life. And the ending of the story, to give it away a little bit, is turning back and looking at what this exchange, the city program, had done over years, and seeing people safely walking back and forth within the neighborhood, going to the city via the bus, kids playing in the grass where they couldn't have done before. And the glow especially shines bright from the child who thinks that, oh sweet, I could just buy shoes now, and realizes that like this is more. It's not. This is something more beautiful, and it does include magical stuff like bus tokens becoming money, but it's not without this foundation of working together. And I really want to challenge, like, well, what would it be like to choose to operate that way rather than on another financial system, a capitalist system, or any other system.
Yeah, because the really remarkable thing about that model is, with like in the bike exchange, donors are bringing something that has a recognized value, right? Like, a used bike is still like, it is something that I could sell used if I wanted to. Whereas like exchanging waste for produce or for a bus token or whatever, like that is like the private market would never ever give you anything in exchange for that, right? The private market makes you pay for the privilege of having this waste taken away in a safe manner. Which is like, that is like mind-blowing forward thinking there.
Well, there is, I totally agree, but you have to know that during that point in time in Curitiba, the city's carrying capacity just wasn't able to account for that amount of litter. So it started affecting everyone's water quality, and the city, as a good city does, is responsible for that. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, litter is enough of a problem in Santa Cruz. There are a number of trash pickup nonprofits that take care of that and try their best. And what it really misses is a civic obligation that we could all do something about it. But I also think coming with that civic obligation is some civic like reciprocity, some sort of civic kickback of that recognition. And we have it. We have bus lines. We have Go Santa Cruz, which encourages people to take their bike and they get rewarded for it. There are these things around. It's a matter of connecting them and making sure it's really convenient to participate.
Yeah. Here in the Twin Cities, I think you're going to love this. We have Metro Transit runs an Adopt-A-Stop program where, by pledging to go out to the stops that you've adopted and pick up trash and, just make sure that like nothing's broken. If there's anything major that you can't handle on your own, you message Metro Transit to let them know that they need to send some staff out. And in return, they send you 10 free rides every month. Yeah. And, you get like your name or whatever little message you want above the right. Saying like, this is adopted by so-and-so. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful little, community forward right. Recognition of that work.
That's great. Yeah, I do love that. I've actually heard about that when I did my talk earlier this week with Bike MN. That just came up as just something in our conversation. So I agree. It's really, I keep using the word elegant. I think it's really elegant.
And any listeners who haven't heard our episode about the Adopt to Stop program can go back and look. That's probably like a year and a half ago we did an episode about that. Great little program. I probably should have asked this towards the beginning, but here we are. Taylor, what is your relationship with bikes? Like, how did you come to bike commuting or the bicycle, community in general?
So I grew up taking my bike everywhere when I was a kid. It
Mm-hmm.
was we didn't have rides that we could bug our parents for, and so that was the default. I rode my little BMX GT around, would flirt with going off big jumps and stuff.
Have you always been in Santa Cruz?
I grew up in Castro Valley, which is near Oakland.
Okay.
And it was hilly, but we just made it work. It was something that we loved to do. We'd go places to just bike to, mm-hmm. and so I was really familiar with it. Went to UC Davis, and it's not because I love bikes that I went to UC Davis, but of course there's a really strong bike culture there. A lot of people ride their bike for the first time there if they haven't already, and it was just nice to have. I had like a push brake or a coaster brake on a nice single speed that I adapted, and I absolutely love that, and that really simple bike. And so that was most of college. Right after college, I lived in San Francisco and I got a Vespa. So I stayed on two wheels, but I got to add a motor. I've always been trying to live a life without a car, and unfortunately, to optimize for a life in Santa Cruz, you got to have a car. But since 2020, a lot of electric bikes really become popular. I picked up one in the second market, mm-hmm. and that's my go-to for doing all these little errands, especially when the sun's out. It's really nice to get a coffee in the morning and not have to get in the car. I live in a beautiful place in the world where the weather's pretty nice, so I think it's a real joy. Mm-hmm. so yeah, but yeah, I still have a car, and I wish to live somewhere where I don't need it.
Yeah, Santa Cruz. Not as big a metro area as the Twin Cities, I imagine. So if you're going to do a bike exchange like somewhere like the Twin Cities, would you think like should we split into like multiple exchanges? You were talking about like probably keeping it small scale it might be better.
We're in Uptown right now, and I took the Greenway up to up past, I guess, into Seward, wherever Bike MN is.
They're over in like Longfellow.
Thank you. Yeah, mm-hmm. In Ho, is that, or How?
How.
How.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And there's Venture Bikes, right? Is that the name of the?
Yep. That's the one on the Greenway.
I think it'd be amazing to hold an exchange at Venture Bikes. You get you get exposure for the Greenway. There's a nice open space adjacent, just on the other side of Venture Bikes. And I've thought about, actually, Community Bike Collective and I have thought about, like, how do we grow, what do we want to stretch into for the next bike exchange? And we thought about, like, that's a great opportunity to get legislation signed, or like, like signatures for a potential legislation or bills or whatever, and generate interest and really support, like, what the vision of what more bike infrastructure could look like. Because people are already going with the purpose to either get a bike, be a good community member, and offer a bike. So it's an opportunity to just, what if we grew that layer of like love and affinity to just another level? What else could we accomplish? So I think it'd be really fun to showcase the Greenway. Can't say if I know the city well enough to offer another place, but I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, and also that brings to mind like what kinds of reward incentives you can offer to the people who are participating, because in the version that you ran, The donors got a voucher for
B-Cycle.
For B-Cycle. Yep, the bike share system. The mechanics also got a voucher for B-Cycle, and then of course the recipients receive a bike. That's the value that they're getting out of the system. And like if a privately owned bike shop is like hosting or being involved in the process in some way, I'm trying to think about like what the incentive structure is for them, and because literally like a bike exchange does take away the need for people to go and buy a bike from the bike shop, but also increases the number of people who might potentially be bringing a bike in for repair later and, buying accessories and stuff. So like, yeah, I don't know, like a small gift card might, but that kind of scales yeah.
Right. I think if you want to just directly use the proof of concept that I built, it could be spin credit. Mm-hmm. It could be maybe it's some sort of pass for a number of light rail rides or bike rides. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what that is. For venture bikes, it would definitely be a community outreach event.
Yeah,
I don't think they would want to just offer free credit.
They're helping to facilitate the space and providing like staff time to help, probably.
That's right.
And receiving exposure out of the system. Yeah.
Yeah, I that's a great question. And I'll also have to say there are a number of organizations in Santa Cruz, for instance, where people want to donate bike accessories, helmets, and mm-hmm. locks. We gave away a lot of helmets at the bike exchange. It's something that wasn't captured in the report, but because it was just something, it was like a little add-on. So maybe there are other opportunities to bundle certain things together where you have so many helmets that are arranged in different sizes that it's just no big deal. Yeah, if you have a smaller head, you grab a small helmet. The problem, what's really important about a good incentive reward is that it needs to be valued by all different, of course, there's a context within biking. There have to be some sort of a certain level of able-bodied, but it needs to be valued across the widest range. Mm-hmm. And so what was really effective about the Green Exchange is that everyone would love some nice organic produce. That mm-hmm. almost everyone could benefit from that. And the bike exchange that I built, just about everyone was curious about B-Cycle. They didn't need to fully commit, but yeah, right. Sure, I'll take a free ride. It's just something to do. I bike a lot anyway. If I'm out, maybe I'm out just going out and enjoying a beer, and I just want to, instead of taking like a car home, I could take a bike. Mm-hmm. So that has a wide range of value that for the community. And so I think that's really interesting too. Like I could imagine a few things, but I'm not of this community. And I'm curious for you or someone else that bikes a lot here, just scratching below the surface, understanding needs and opportunities. What would be the highest value for the average commuter? And what was really nice about the B-Cycle ride passes, if they didn't need it, they could still give it to someone.
Right.
That
mm-hmm.
was really special. There's just this ability to offer it to someone else. And in fact, some people are like, I would do this for free. It's like, that's not the point. Thank you so much. And if you want, you could give that away. You could be extra nice to someone else. So it's mainly just acknowledging it, anchoring that as like, that's good. We want more of that. Here's something. And if you want to give it away, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like I have far more Metro Transit Go-To cards now than I can use, because I've adopted a few stops, and but having them around is super useful for like when people are visiting from out of town, and it's like, hey, here's a bus card. This'll get you around for a few days.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, totally. And I also wonder, I just got a hit on an idea. Like, does Spin offer monthly passes, weekly passes? I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. So, I mean, we're in an awkward place right now where it's like, we used to have like Nice Ride was a, not municipally owned, but, was like municipally supported nonprofit organization that was exclusive to the Twin Cities. Now we've got, that went away because their major corporate sponsor decided to stop supporting them. And so now we just have the venture capital backed like Lime Bike and Spin and whoever else decides to, put a bid in for some licenses. So season to season, we can have vastly different groups of private companies operating in the Twin Cities, which is a frustrating place because like, it doesn't feel like it's from the community. It's not consistent. It's so
Right.
so yeah, I don't know if I would lean on that necessarily until we can get our act together and get back to the place where we have something that's more like municipally run or at least like focused on this community more than a national company
Right.
can be.
Yeah, these ideas are trickling in. I can imagine. For the most part the Greenway's finished. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So like if it wasn't, it'd be, or maybe there's streets that are being converted. Like you could activate a new street that got new bike lanes and have an exchange there. And I think that would be, again, it's just exposure. It's an immediate opportunity to look at this place where you could ride the bike. It could be a great venue to host one. But yeah, back to the incentive reward. That's a tough one. I think you have to just get a little more clever, and I don't know what that looks like from
right.
where I am.
Well, I mean, you mentioning the example of like if a school were to host one of these and offering kids like, oh yeah, you won't have to like pay your dues for a field trip in the future. Like that is something that I would not have been able to think of because I'm not within that context.
Right.
So like that is a perfect kind of thinking outside the box, thinking within your context. What would that look like? And since we're not in whatever individual context people are coming at this conversation from, like we're not going to be able to think of those things. So in Minnesota we it gets dark earlier during the fall and winter, and so adding lights or bike locks to the exchange. And that's something that it's so like oftentimes when I'm encouraging somebody to get into bike commuting, it's so important to make it clear to people that like it's not about just getting you get the bike and that's step one. You're also going to need a few other things to go along with it so that you don't find yourself like totally out of luck when you're like, oh, the first time that I go to the grocery store and I leave my bike outside, wait a minute, how am I going to lock it? Oops, forgot about that detail, right?
Yeah.
I'm biking at night for the first time. I didn't, I never thought about getting a light.
Right.
And so I like setting people up for success, I feel like includes at least giving that information, if not also providing like, some basic lights, a basic lock to go along with a bike.
Totally. Back to the imagined venture bike bike exchange. It would be fascinating to just allow different bike education like nonprofits to table and offer some education. Like that's a great opportunity again to compile services, just opportunities, education, legislation, whatever that looks like. And there's something about that contextual power of, oh, I didn't really want to hear about this information now, but now that I have a bike, I kind of want to learn how to lock it. And where's a good place to lock it? And how do I, put this light on my bike? So
how do I mount my bike on the bus when I want to, combine that with a trip?
Yeah, that would be, that's a great opportunity to do so. And, it just, again, it's what the bike exchange offers is this compilation of opportunity, compilation of community interaction and collaboration. And so, that's a great point. Yes, there's the actual resources of bikes, helmets, locks, but at least like there could be that we could easily solve for the education piece if they're held, if bike exchanges are held.
Yeah. So in your case, in the event that you hosted, you ended up with more bikes than you had recipients ready, right? What was the plan for if the opposite happened? What if you had way more recipients signing up than you ended up having bikes? Bikes in particular are a thing where not every bike is going to be good for every person, right? There's a wide variety of different sizes.
Right.
So, even if you have the same number, you can easily have a mismatch. And,
There's a very human aspect to this. There needs to be some places to store stuff. I don't know what happens when the produce doesn't all get picked up after a day of running the Green Exchange, for instance. The Community Bike Collective, I didn't expect them to get 25 mechanics. That knocked out of the park. If we only had 23 bikes from the Waldorf school, we would have had a lot of idle mechanics. So that combined with what the Community Bike Collective pulled together just through their community, I don't think that was planned from what I remember, that they would get these extra maybe 20 bikes from all the thrift stores in the area. So that was lucky. We have to be lenient with what just happens day of, but you do your best. That's why curating your community, your groups of participants is really important. Some guaranteed, I could already offer 10 bikes. Let's pencil that in, because that means we need at least, 2 mechanics, 3 mechanics for those 10 bikes. So yeah, it's all this pre-work that the equivalent of a community organizer would do, whether if it's within one of these groups or someone like me who just was a community exchange nerd, and would just coordinate, like, okay, if we have all these mechanics come and we only have 23 bikes, we're gonna have a problem. We might want to just let them know if they could come hang out, but that's just not gonna be the expectation. We might have a shorter day, so there needs to be flexibility. The first day, we only gave away 16 bikes to the housing authority, which is okay in the long run, but we had to get really crafty storing those bikes the night of, and then we brought them back down to Community Bike Collective, the community headquarters, and the Community Bike Collective luckily just has done a lot of work giving out bikes. So it didn't take long before we got connected to a elementary school. We just rolled them out after school, and families grabbed them, and then we found a female farmer migrant support group in which we just rolled bikes out, and they grabbed whatever bikes. Again, there's a lot of giving in the Santa Cruz community, which is fantastic. Like, it's really generous for those who have, and those who have not are supported as best they could. So people are available, people are talking. Could they talk better? Can stuff be compiled further and more opportunities like an exchange happen? I think so. And I think that's really even true about, I would judge about Minneapolis. There's so many people already doing good work. Who is that conductor? Who's that music composer that's going to write this design and get us all to come together and just and make sure we get a real compounding effect, a compounding outcome, a very productive outcome for whatever the community needs.
Yeah. It sounds like the mechanics who were participating in the event, they were the ones who were there the longest. They put in a lot of work. Did you get any feedback from them, that is like, that you're going to keep in mind for next time?
They're a very strong community. First off, a lot of people were voicing how, when's the next one? This was so fun. I would, otherwise I've just been at home. So a lot of people brought their kids. The kids would test ride the children's bikes, and I was just impressed. I just wanted to make it worth their time. Pizza was a big deal. When I brought up, like, could we feed these mechanics, the Community Bike Collective was like, yeah, if you could get pizza, that would just knock it out of the park. And I was like, sure, that doesn't seem too hard. And then the after party, so we hosted an after party at a brewery, Discretion Brewery, shout out to them. We got this deal where if you flashed your ride pass, they draw a little star, and that'd be good for a beer, which delighted me as a community currency nerd of like having this pass be a free ride pass for 2 hours as well as a free beer for just that night. So yeah, just a little feature onto this like this thing that represents this symbol, yeah.
And so these mechanics are used to participating in the community bicycle collective that is fixing up bikes and then giving them away eventually. But like, what is the process from their perspective usually? Like, are they all in one place at the same time helping to fix up bikes, or do they come in individually?
So what we literally did was the community bike collective president, he is really well connected, and he would recruit at different bike stores. He recruit at, just like, we have another nonprofit called the Bike Church, amongst others for sure, but he recruited some at the Bike Church, and he would just put it out on different Facebook groups, and the turnout was great.
But I'm asking, like, during their ordinary operations, like how do they get their bikes fixed up and everything? Do the mechanics get to all hang out together while they're fixing stuff up?
Thank you. So in the housing authority parking lot, it was the reason why I picked it, because it was big. We had an area that was really comfortable for donations, and an area that was really comfortable for refurbishing. In fact, we had this nice little flow of cars coming in, dropping off bikes, and then heading out without getting in the way of the mechanics. So there was a huge work party. You could imagine, like, 8 stations, maybe 9 stations, depending on some mechanics worked on bikes together, and they bring the instructions were to bring their own I don't know what to call it, stand to work on the bike. And there's a pool of different parts and tools right in the middle, so people could come and like grab stuff that they need. And that was pretty much it. They all worked at the same time. Some, came a little bit later. They're volunteering, but they most of the time got there. Some of these bikes that we got only needed to. We asked donors to clean bikes, but sometimes you clean it up and dust right it, and it might be done. So bikes, mechanics were put to work, but sometimes they just let their kid ride it and like, sweet, let's put that in the pile. Right. Let's get it out.
I think that was the detail that I loved the most, was like the mechanics who brought their kid to the event, and then the kid was helping to test ride the bikes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And in a future bike exchange, that could just be, they get to keep the bike. I assume a mechanic might have multiple bikes with their kids already, but you never know. Nice. Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to make sure that we talk about before we wrap this one up?
Let me think about that. I would just say, if anyone that's listening to this podcast is interested in building one of these, I would love to connect with you. I could help out any way I can. I'd love to see another one of these, and I would love to see your flavor too. I have my own way of doing things, but for this to really catch on and become a thing, community exchanges, bike exchanges at large, whatever, I would just love to support and see what that would look like. I would love for these to pop up anywhere in the world. That's why I wrote the report and wrote a bunch of nice tips for people that want to organize their own.
And while you're legitimately doing like a whirlwind tour right now, you are wasting no time while you're here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, I learned a lot when I self-published my book in 2023 and just kind of gathered a bunch of ideas of what I would do if I did this again. And sure enough, I republished my book in hardcover with a publisher, and I started applying all of that. And I've been coming here every 3 to 4 years, the last 3 to 4 years, to visit my good friend, and I've gotten to know a lot of people, learn my way around here. I'm really grateful they lives in Uptown. So many walkable attractions and places to eat and get coffee. And so I've created my own relationship with this place. So when it came time to all right, I'm going to activate my greater region, Monterey, but let's do a stop somewhere. And sure enough, this was an easy dart to throw into the dartboard.
Yeah, because you're doing a book event at Bone Shaker Books. Of course, this is all in the past for you listeners, because that's how time works. You're also, just yesterday, you gave a talk hosted by the Bicycle Alliance in Minnesota, right?
That's right.
And that was about this process, the bicycle exchange. Was that so? That was a live event in person.
That was a live event. Okay, yeah, at their headquarters.
Nice. With who attended it? What was the audience like?
Someone that's part of the Greenway Coalition, and everyone else. It was a small group, and everyone else were employees.
Okay.
What was really important to me, one is practice, just practice public speaking. But 2 is, no matter the size, as long as it's not depressingly small, that everyone's interested in what I'm talking about. And sure enough, Angela Olsen, who I was communicating with, shout out to her, she delivered on just that. There's a lot of great people that came, and of course the people that work at Bike MN. Yeah,
and if you want to get the attention of the people who are going to be able to facilitate something like this, the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota are a great people to talk to.
That's
Absolutely.
Right. That's right. Yeah. There are people that when I think of designing and thinking about organizing events, there's participants and there's partners. And I definitely would see Bike MN as a partner. They would be someone to get in the sandbox with and figure stuff out with.
And then you're stopping here by my studio and chatting here. Anything else significant that you're doing in town while you're here?
No, it's a whirlwind. I take off Monday morning or Monday afternoon. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll be back in the winter. I'll probably have some more book events. This is, I'm going to say it's a second home, but when your best friend lives here, you come and see him.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I hope that you get to, relax a little bit on Sunday.
Yeah, that's the plan. I look forward to it. It's going to be fun to have such a fulfilling time here.
Yeah. Well, Taylor, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Streets.mn podcast. The show is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Non-Derivative license, so feel free to republish the episode as long as you are not altering it and you are not profiting from it. The music in this episode is by Eric Brandt and the Urban Hillbilly Quartet. This episode was edited by Stina Neel and was hosted and transcribed by me, Ian R. Buck. We're always looking to feature new voices on the Streets.mn podcast, so if you have ideas for future episodes, drop us a line at podcast@streets.mn. Streets.mn is a community blog and podcast and relies on contributions from audience members like you. If you can make a one-time or recurring donation, you can find more information about doing so at streets.mn/donate. Find other listeners and discuss this episode on your favorite social media platform using the hashtag StreetsMNPodcast. Until next time, take care.